So part of my journey right now with me healing is allowing for God to take me through therapy using the Bible. I just simply call it Bible therapy. I've gone to, whether it be psychiatrists, sports therapists, all types of things throughout my life, but I've seen that the Bible has helped me to heal the most because it doesn't just provide a solution for the situation, but it provides a solution that's applicable to everything in my life, right? And last time I talked to y'all about this, God was showing me the importance of not allowing for love to equal expectations. What do I mean by that? The simple fact of, because I love you so much, because I think so highly of you, I now cannot give you grace for something that I would give a stranger grace for. That just doesn't, equate to what love should be. God shows us in his word that the greater the love, the higher level of grace that we should give. And today, as I was reading, right, most of what we talk about is going to be coming from the book of Mark. God was showing me something new, right? And it was in Mark chapter 5, right? So in Mark chapter 5, we see a couple of things. We see the man who is healed from the demon of legion. We see the woman with the issue of blood. But then, right, after the popular story of the woman with the issue of blood, there's a woman who bled for 12 years. But the reason she was healed is because of her faith. Her faith, while somebody else was on their way to a miracle. Right, so there's this man named Jairus, right, and his daughter had lost her life. And there are a couple of things that God was showing me that help with just being real, the trauma that I've experienced from life, seeing how I can take accountability and how I can grow to prevent those things from happening again, right? His daughter had passed away, so he met Jesus, right? And he asked him to come and heal his daughter, right? But what we see is that on the way, he healed the woman with the issue of blood. But then once it was time for him to go into the house, he told everyone stay back. And the only people he kept with him were James, John, and Peter. Right? So that's the first thing that we see, that Jesus even had his own boundaries of who he allowed to be in close to see his most intimate moments. Right? So then Jesus goes in. The daughter is already deceased and everybody's crying, right? Everybody's grieving. There's a huge moment of everybody like, oh no, this is the worst thing in the world, right? But Jesus tells them something, right? He essentially tells them, have faith, everything is fine. They made a mockery of him. So we see here that Jesus has the biggest faith in the room. And what we also see is that Jairus was grieving, right? The father of the deceased little girl, who's 12 years old, by the way. He's grieving because the people around him are grieving. So his grief is in the way of his faith, right? That's the first thing that I want you to remember. If you're writing things down, remember, don't let your grief get in the way of your faith. It's okay to process. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to be human. But also remember that those human emotions can also be of the flesh, and your flesh can deny your faith if you allow it to, right? So what Jesus does is he then shows Jairus, through the faith that he had to come get Jesus, Jesus sets a boundary in his life, right? So when you meet Jesus, when you allow Jesus into your situation, he will set boundaries in your life, and you have to allow him to do so, right? So what is the boundary that Jesus set? I'm sure y'all want to hear me say it after I just gave that big build up. He tells everybody but a couple of people to get out. The only people that are in there are the three disciples, James, John, and Peter, that he brought with him, Jairus, and I believe maybe the mother, right? So we're looking at roughly 5 people out of a big, huge crowd that had been following Jesus way back since when he went to heal the woman with the issue of blood. He didn't go to heal her, but at that time there was a big crowd around him. So now we've narrowed that huge crowd down to 5 people. So what does that mean? In order to receive your miracle, you have to be able to set necessary boundaries to be okay with a small crowd. Everything is not meant for everybody, right? And what we see, the reality in that being confirmed, is after he heals her, right? He said to her, essentially, little girl, wake up, right? In biblical words, it depends on the King James Version, the English Standard Version, the NLT, the CSB, you know what I'm saying? But he does the miracle. He wakes the girl up because initially he told them that she was just sleeping. That's when they start to make a mockery, right? But she wakes up, she gets on her feet, and she's walking around after they just saw that she had passed away. But the next thing that Jesus did is what confirms how important boundaries are when it comes to allowing God to work a miracle in your life, because he had to get those people out of the way to perform the miracle. But then what did he do? He charged them to tell no one, right? He told them to tell absolutely nobody about what he had done for her. And many people wonder why. Well, think about it. Why would he kick them out of the house if it was meant for them to know about the miracle? It's your faith that can open the door for the miracle to be done. But also, if you have the faith to believe that it will be done, you should trust him enough to do it in private and not care for it to be seen in public. Everything in life is not about $1 million. But fact of the matter is, if God gave you $1 million today, why would you call people and tell them instead of figuring out what to do with it? For a lot of us, right, and this is what I'm picking up from my healing process and my Bible therapy, is that I have to master the ability to be okay with the intimate miracle over the public expansion and the public elevation. It doesn't matter if God exalts me before men, if he exalts me privately in a way that brings joy and peace to my spirit. Abundance is abundance, whether many or few see it. At the end of the day, it's yours. So if God charges you to remain private, to remain unseen, to remain hidden, to remain in a posture of obedience that doesn't care for people to see, which is what true integrity is, what you do when no one's looking, then that's what has to happen. Because he's not going to, it makes me think about in the book of Luke when it talks about prayer and fasting for those who openly express, the pain that they get from fasting. Well, people's response, that's your reward. That's what the word of God says. So apply that to your life. If you want God to perform the miracle, allow him to remove the people, the toxic people, the people who want to laugh and make a mockery of your crazy faith. Remove those people, get them out of the way, and allow for God to do the big thing. But sometimes the only way for God to have a room, right? The word of God says a man's gift makes room for him. But we also learn in one of Paul's letters is that faith is a gift of the Spirit. So your faith can make room for you, but if there are too many people around you in the flesh, they will counter your faith if you allow them to. So sometimes God has to remove those people so that your faith can have the room that it needs to make room for you to receive the miracle from God. I don't know who needed to hear this today, but you are healed enough to receive the miracle. But you have to make the hard decision to X out the people who don't align with what God is doing for your life. The miracle is waiting for you, but it'll be mismanaged if you don't manage your circle, right? The word of God says that narrow is the way and few find it, which means that if you're on the narrow road, you have to understand that not a lot of people are going to join you. So you cannot allow people to walk with you who are not walking the same direction as you, because they're likely to pull you the other way. Hope that makes sense. God bless you.